Hello everybody, and welcome to another SevOne training video. In this training video, I'll be going over a new feature of the 5.5 release of SevOne, known as Selective Discovery. So in the past, if you wanted to sweep a subnet and add devices to SevOne, it could have been a little complex, or it could have caused some problems with your software because you would bring in every device that was on that subnet versus just certain devices that you would want added. You used to have to decide whether or not they were added as a candidate or if they were added as a device, and it became complex. So what we did is we created a new function in the 5.5 release known as Selective Discovery. So what this allows you to do is before you import any of the devices into the SevOne system, what you can do is you can write object rules to disable certain devices from coming in or only allowing in certain devices that meet a criteria. So let's start by going to the object rules. Anybody that is familiar with the SevOne product, this will look a lot like writing object rules. So we're going to go into administration, down to monitor configuration, and into object rules. And this brings us to our object rules page. So first and foremost, you'll notice that all devices by default can be included. So you'll see that the first object rule that's always provided is that all devices, all plugins, all object types, everything is currently allowed inside of SevOne. Then what you can do, you can write rules on top of this excluding those. So the basis behind this is that we want to allow everything in the system unless you specify otherwise. So in this case, for instance, all devices with an SNMP polar that come under the interface category with the description of null are being excluded from being brought into the SevOne system. So when adding devices, what you can do is you can pick and choose which devices you want entered into the system as well as block anything you don't. So let's go ahead and write a rule to show you how this works. So if I go up to the object rules here and add a rule, it's going to ask you for a device type and an object type. So for instance, a generic would be basically anything, or I know you can go down to and select a specific manufacturer like Cisco or Dell. In our case, we're going to have all device groups. Now that we have selected all devices, you need to select an object type, and here you're going to have to specify what type of polar you want to start narrowing this down for so that we can create this rule. In my case, I'm just going to select SNMP, it being the most common, and then I'm going to select our bandwidth tools just so I can use a common occurrence that we can use against. So I will select bandwidth, and then we'll just select bandwidth in general. And all subtypes are immediately selected. Now this is where the actual filtering of the rule really begins. So what you can do is you can immediately start breaking this down based on an expression or description of an object. So if in the object's description it comes in as server, or if the name comes in as New York or Chicago, in this case we can start filtering out any devices that either don't meet the criteria or do meet the criteria. So keep in mind, you're allowed to filter things out as matching and not matching. So if you want to bring in any device that does not match New York, you can easily do that by clicking does not match versus having to sort out every other thing that isn't New York. So in our case, we're just going to go ahead and do an object name. In our case, anything that starts with the word core, we are going to filter out. Now you also have to specify whether or not this is case sensitive. Keep in mind that you can create a rule that does require matching of the object name and the object description. You don't have to just select one or the other. Just make sure that if it is a case sensitive requirement that you do select case sensitive. Now once you have all your criteria built into the system, most importantly you need to decide what kind of status it is. So if you want to include any device that matches that criteria, you'd obviously do include. If you want to exclude any device that matches that criteria, you do exclude. And then you have the more extreme block. If you use block, it will not only stop it from being added into the system during discovery, it'll also shut down anything inside the SevOne system currently that matches that criteria. So you have include and exclude, which is for discovery, and then you have block, which will basically shut down anything already in the SevOne system that meets that criteria. So make sure you use block and exclude correctly so that you won't shut down anything in the system that may already match that criteria. So we'll do exclude. You can provide it with a note like this is a video and click save. Once that rule is added into the SevOne system, you will now see that it appears at the very top of the list. So just like many other features inside SevOne, these are hierarchical. So for instance, if you want one rule to be used before the other rule, the rule at the very top of the list will be the first rule applied. So if for some instances you want some rules performed before other rules, so you may want to have one thing filtered before it filters out again. So for instance, if you want it to filter out some sort of SNMP matching server, and then after it does that sort, you want it to sort out anything inside server that matches maybe New York, you can do that, but you have to make sure that the rules are in the correct order. So you can very easily change the relationship of the rules by using the up and down arrows on the right hand side here. So what I've done is I've just successfully moved the rule we created further down. So it's going to scan the disk I/O first before it scans for bandwidth. And you can consistently change these rules around. Just keep in mind that all plugins, all objects, all subtypes must be at the bottom, or else what's going to happen is it's automatically going to add everything before it adds that rule. Once a rule is written, if you want to make any changes, it's as simple as clicking the little wrench icon on the right hand side. It'll bring up the rule that we just created, and then you can go ahead and make any changes. Once you've created the rules, you can then go ahead and discover those devices using SevOne Discovery, which there is another video showing you how to do that. And then once you go ahead and add those devices, it'll exclude whatever you've written in the rule, or include whatever you've written in the rule. I thank you for watching this SevOne training video, and I thank you for being a SevOne user. Hopefully this was very helpful, and have yourself a great day.